The number one source of teacher burnout is not exhaustion. And I can see why you might think that, because we're exhausted all the time. I mean, I get it. I lived it. But the number one cause of teacher burnout is something far more sinister. It's something that we've never thought about. It's something that we've never been taught. It's something that we've never been trained on. And honestly, most of us are doing it right now. And so in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what's causing burnout, what's destroying you and your joy for teaching. And most importantly, I want to share with you 4 things that you can do about it starting today. So come on and let's get after it. Teacher burnout isn't just about being tired. And I know that that's often what we think of. And I also know that that's exactly the way it feels. But burnout is something much deeper. It's something much darker. And it's more than just needing a good night's sleep, because burnout is a slow erosion of who you are as an individual. Burnout comes with a loss of perspective, a loss of hope. And if you've ever stood in front of your classroom and you completely felt empty, like you had nothing left to give and you weren't even sure why you were still in the classroom, that's burnout doing exactly what burnout does. And it really hits us in 4 different ways. Number 1 is emotionally, because we absorb the trauma of our students that they carry into the room every single day. We absorb their behaviors, the pain, the chaos, and over time, compassion fatigue sets in and we start to lose our ability to care. Number 2 is physically, because teachers are on their feet constantly all day long, redirecting, constantly adapting, and working on an average of 15 plus hours a week overtime. Number 3 is mentally, because we make somewhere around 1,500 decisions a day. And when you are mentally depleted, you just lose your ability to concentrate. You start to lose your ability and your sense of purpose, and you begin to feel like a failure. And number 4, and this is most important of all, is spiritually, because when you try to pour from an empty cup, you don't have much to give. And when the emotional, physical, and mental tanks are all running on fumes, the very next thing that goes right down the drain is your spirit. And here's what that looks like in real life. You show up physically, but you're not there mentally. You're not there emotionally, and you're grinding yourself down to nothing. And before long, you're just like Elvis. You left the building. And I want you to know that you're not alone in this, because the fact of the matter is that 60% of all teachers in America say that they're burned out right now. And 66% of teachers say that if they had another option other than teaching, they would walk right straight out the door. And if that's you, I want you to know that you're not alone. I want you to know you're not broken. You're not weak, but I do want you to know that you got to have a plan. And I made one for you. It's called Reclaim Your Limits. It's free. It's 100% free. It's always free. It's right down in the description box. You can get it to QR code. It'll help you set your personal, professional, and relational boundaries, and it'll change your life. So go grab it. The thing that's actually causing burnout in all 4 of those areas, it's not exhaustion. Exhaustion is just the outcome. The actual cause is a lack of boundaries. And I know what you're thinking, and I don't want you to get after me, because that sounds like some kind of therapy talk, or that sounds like something that you'd put on a coffee mug. But I want you to know that this ain't that. Because at Teacher Talk, we're a faith-based organization. And Proverbs chapter 25 and verse number 28 says this: like a city whose walls are broken through is a person who lacks self-control. Now, in the ancient world, a wall was everything. The wall was not there as a decoration. It was not something that was just supposed to look nice in the neighborhood. The wall was not optional. The wall was actually the difference between a city surviving and a city being destroyed by an enemy. A wall with a hole in it meant 2 things. Number 1, the wrong things were getting in, and number 2, the wrong things were leaking out. And that is the perfect picture of what happens to a teacher without boundaries. When there's no boundaries, we lose self-control. And I don't mean that we're going crazy, although some of us may be. I mean that we lose the ability to decide what gets access to our time, what gets access to our energy, what gets access to our emotions, and most of all, what gets access to our peace. The wrong things get in, and the good things, they go right out the door. And that's exactly why burnout hits us in all 4 of these dimensions: emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual. And every single area of depletion tracks back to the same root: no boundaries. So the question that you might have is, how did we get here? Because I can promise you that nobody woke up one morning and said, hey, I'm going to live life without boundaries so that I can burn myself out. And yet that's exactly what happened. were burned out. And it happened for very specific reasons. There are two kinds of causes that drive us towards burnout. There are external causes and there are internal causes. And so let's start with the external issues of the system. Cause number one is systemic overload. Teachers are handed more expectations than any human being can reasonably carry out with little to no support to carry them. And here's the part that makes me want to flip a table over, is that a lot of the expectations that are placed upon teachers, they're completely outside of their control. And I want you to think about that for just a minute, because as a teacher, you can show up every single day. You can pour everything you got into your lessons. You can scaffold 6 different ways to Sunday. You can differentiate for every single learning style in the room, and a student can walk out into a state standardized test, Christmas tree the test, put their head down, go to sleep, and who's responsible? Not the student. There's no consequences there, but all of the responsibility lays on your shoulders. Cause number 2 is boundary confusion. On average, teachers work about 52 hours a week trying to meet the expectations that cannot actually be met in 52 hours. And so what happens is the work comes home, and the home, which is supposed to be a sacred sanctuary to get rest, gets invaded. And when you bring work home with you long enough, even though you're physically at home, you're not actually there because your mind is still at school. And in some ways, your heart's still at school. And the people that you love, the ones that you care about the most, they're getting whatever's left over. And that is not a sustainable lifestyle. And that is not the lifestyle that you signed up for. But here's the thing, the external causes, they're only half of the picture. The other half is harder to talk about because those live inside of us. But before I get into that, I built a 5-part coaching resource called The Power of Enough, and it's built exactly for this moment. It's a resource that I created out of my own experience for teachers just like you who are ready to stop surviving and start leading their own life again. You can grab it right there at the description box or at the QR code on the screen. Either way, just go get it. All right, let's get back to it. The internal issues are the ones that nobody wants to talk about. And I know that because I'm still trying to work through each and every one of these every single day. The number one issue that teachers struggle with is guilt-driven service. And this is the feeling that you get when someone asks you to do just one more thing, to cover a class or chair a committee or run a program. And every part of you wants to say no, but because you feel guilty and because you want to be a team player and because you don't want anybody to think that you're weak, you just go ahead and say, okay, I'll do it. And then you go home and you resent it. The second thing that teachers deal with is perfectionism. And that is the belief that deep down inside that everything actually depends upon you, that if you don't somehow get involved, that it won't get done right, that if you step back, that somehow things are going to fall apart. And I got to confess, I struggle with that quite a bit because it's very difficult for me to look at things and see them undone and not get involved. And it's cost me more than I really want to admit. And the third internal struggle that teachers deal with is identity confusion. And that's when you begin to define your worth by outcomes, whether it's student outcomes or whether it's your admin's approval or by whether your class scores are up or whether your evaluations look really good. And as you can imagine, when those things are good, you feel good. But when those things go sideways, you go sideways too, because you begin to feel like a failure, like you're not enough or you're not good enough or you didn't do enough. And I understand that very well because I struggle with that myself. But what I've learned is that I can't be defined by a test score or by what my principal says. I mean, what do they know anyway? Now, here's what all of those things have in common. Every single one of them exists because there are no boundaries in place. Guilt-driven service happens because we never defined what was ours to carry. Perfectionism explodes when we have no limit on our involvement, and identity confusion takes root when there's no boundary between who we are and what we do. And it all traces back to the same place. Now, I got to be honest with you. I wish I could just hand you a list of boundaries and say, here, go do these things right here, or here, put these boundaries in place, but I can't. And the reason why is because boundaries are personal. They have to come from you. But here are 4 things you can do to get started today. Step number 1, start with prayerful reflection. You have got to get before the Lord and you got to ask a very honest question. And that is, what things are my responsibility to carry versus what are the responsibilities of God to carry? Because Here's what happens to teachers is that we develop sometimes a savior complex. We love our students so much so that we start to believe that it's our job to save them from failing, to save them from their home life, or to save them from their circumstances, or even worse, save them from themselves. But the truth is, it's not our responsibility to save every kid. We are not their savior. And when we try to carry what was never ours to begin with, we begin to break down underneath the weight of that. Step number 2, define your limits clearly. You have to decide ahead of time, not in the moment, when you're going to work, when you're going to rest, when you're going to have time to disconnect. You got to have a plan in place, because if you try to decide in the moment, every single time something will come up and it'll pull you away from it. Here's what I want you to remember is that rest is not a reward to be earned. Rest is a resource to be protected. Step number 3, communicate your boundaries, because this is something that I learned the hard way. A boundary that goes uncommunicated will also go unkept. There's a number of ways that you could do that. You could write them down. You could tell people in your life, but I can tell you what you're ultimately going to have to do, because I had to do it myself, is you're going to have to go sit down with your administration and you're going to have to communicate those boundaries to them. And I know it sounds terrifying. I get it. I was a nervous wreck, because several years ago, whenever I came out of one of the worst seasons of burnout that I've ever experienced my entire life, I went and I sat down with my administration, and I didn't know if I was going to be non-renewed. I don't know if it's going to be transferred. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I sit down and I shared with them, this is what I'll do and this is what I won't do. And you want to know what happened? Nothing. They sit there, they listen to me, and to this day, 3 days later, those boundaries have never been violated. Because communicating your boundaries is not insubordination, it's self-leadership. And step number 4 is to learn to say no gracefully. Once you set a boundary, somebody's going to come to you. It's probably going to happen this week or the week after, and they're going to ask you to do something. They're going to ask you to cover a class, or to take a chair a committee, or to run another program over here, and you're going to feel like everything's going to fall apart and all the guilt's going to begin to come in on you, and you're going to fear what they're going to think about you. And I want you to learn a phrase, and I want you to put it in your back pocket. I want you to pull it right out of your back pocket every time this happens. And here it is. I really appreciate you thinking about me. I appreciate your confidence in me. But right now, the best thing that I can do for my students is to show up as a well-prepared teacher. So I'm going to have to say no. And speaking of wisdom, Proverbs chapter 16, verse number 32 says this: better a patient person than a warrior, one with self-control than one who takes a city. Now, you got to understand this proverb, because in the ancient days, conquering cities and people, that was the ultimate show of strength. And honestly, that's what a lot of teachers are trying to do. We're out here trying to conquer everything. We want to conquer a system that's unfair. We want to conquer the parent that's driving us absolutely insane. We want to conquer the admin that keeps piling everything up on top of us. And somewhere along the way, we started to believe that that's exactly what good teachers do, is that good teachers just take it. Good teachers just push through. Good teachers just conquer things. And I want you to know that wisdom proves differently, because wisdom says that a person that learns their limits and learns to live within them, that person is stronger than any warrior. And I need you to hear me on this, because this is not weakness. This is what wisdom looks like when it's put into action. Now, I have no idea exactly where you are right now. Maybe you watch this video and you're feeling fired up and you're ready to go. Or maybe you watch this video and you're sitting there thinking, John, I don't even know where to start. I don't even know what my boundaries are. I don't even know what they should look like. I don't even know how to have that conversation with my administration. And I don't know how to show up without guilt. Maybe that's you. And if that's you, I'd like to talk to you. I don't want to talk at you. I just want to have a conversation with you. I want to invite you to book a discovery call with me. No pressure, no agenda, just two people trying to figure this thing out. You can grab that in the description box, or you can get it at the QR code right there on the screen, because you don't have to figure this out alone. And I also want you to know that it means that you're not going to figure this out overnight, because you didn't get here overnight. The burnout that you're struggling with, it didn't just show up yesterday. The boundaries, they didn't just disappear 2 days ago. It was gradual, and that takes a real toll on you. And that means that the road back is going to take a minute. It's going to take some work. but you don't have to do it alone. And one of the ways that you can get started on the road back is to watch this video right here and give yourself permission to set boundaries. And as always, stay strong and keep teaching.